Let me see your hands. Who took the bus? Did you have fire in your gut?
I have a lot to say about, or I have a lot of the same things to say. If you want to click on this first video up there, you should be able to play it right there. Yeah. I think everyone's seen this clip. It's with CJ Stroud as his quarterback, and Marv does some crazy one-legged catch where he contorts his body. And I know the NFL, you need two legs inbounds, but there are not a lot of human beings that have played football ever that can do things like this. And when you get a guy like this that can do these type of things at that young of an age, he pops off the screen. So my strengths for Marv, and like I said, he is my number one receiver, his body control, and I know Neil said that he doesn't like that, but also his catch radius. I mean, you see it all the time. I think D-Hop is actually a very good comparison. And if you look at what D-Hop's done in the NFL, at least early on in his career, he was very successful. So I think if Marv goes to, say, potentially to the Chargers, I think that's a great fit for him. Obviously, you're getting Justin Herbert to throw to you, but he's going to be a quarterback's best friend in terms of they can just toss the ball up to him and you'll know he has a shot. That's what you can count on Marv to be there for the quarterback. And then his tracking ability. I know his deep balls, all the time he was tracking it very well. He had Kyle McCord as his quarterback, so he got a good amount of practice tracking the ball because the ball wasn't always on target. And I think that's a very important skill to have, and it's something that can't really be taught. You see guys all the time that come into the league and struggle a little with catches, and a lot of that just has to do with their eyes being on the ball and tracking it well. Obviously, a lot of people say it. You said it yourself, Neil. Separation and release. Those are two things that he can improve on, and I believe those are two things he can improve on. I think he has good feet. I think his separation factor that he's going to have to improve is just being physical. And another thing that I don't have on my list is that he can draw some more penalties. Constantly in college, he was getting hounded by people, and he kind of just decided to go with the flow, which I respect, honestly. But in the NFL, you don't just get 15 yards, you get the ball where the pass interference happens. So he's going to have to do a little bit better job of maybe selling it or just accepting the contact rather than just completely shrugging it off.
What do you think about him not doing the combine or the pro day? I forgot to talk.
I mean, I would like to hear from him about it. Obviously, I don't think he's addressed it. At least I haven't seen anything that's addressed it. But in my opinion, with him, it really doesn't matter. You got a guy, he's got a dad that's a Hall of Famer, so he knows what's expected of him. He's been in the limelight the last 3 years, honestly. Even his first year, he kind of started getting some hype near the end of it, had a great second year. So I'm not really worried about it. We know what he can do, and I don't think there was much more to show in the combine, to be honest.
All right. Even if he runs a 4.5?
I don't need him to run a 4.5. I would have thought he was like a 4.6 guy, honestly. So
damn. All right.
I might be completely off with that, but I'm not worried about his speed in general.
Oh, nice picture.
Yeah. So second guy, we talked about him already, Malik Neighbors. I think he's smooth, as you saw in some of those clips that Big Lip showed. He's fast. He ran a great 40, 4.34, 4.35, I think, something like that. He's consistent in his college play. He was very consistent, had good game after good game. He backs himself up, and I think that's one of the things I like most about him is his consistency in performing. You don't, at least in college, you didn't really have to worry about him having an off game for one reason or the other. And then I addressed this when Neil was talking about him. I think he can snap off his routes a little more, and you already see he gets a lot of separation. I believe he was between him, Marv, Odunze, and Keon Coleman. I believe he was the top separator when those four were at the top of the wide receiver rankings earlier in the college football season. So I think if he gets even crispier with his routes, he'll really start to make corners fear a little more. I think right now he's a little okay with just finding some space. But that's really all I have to say about Neighbors. Don't have too much wrong with him. I think he's got good hands as well. So I think we'll have to see where he goes. I sure hope for his sake that he goes to a relatively decent offense.
Just not the Patriots or the Giants for
yeah.
any of these guys.
Honestly. After that, I go to Rome Odunze. Obviously, I think we just have our 1 and 2 flipped, and then we have our 3 and 4 flip. So Rome Odunze is my third. Again, I like body control. I think if you can make good catches, we see it with Justin Jefferson. A quarterback can count on him to just go up and make a catch. You saw it at the Bills game a couple years back. You saw Nick Mullins throw him the ball earlier this year, and he made an insane grab, or I guess later in the season. But body control, I really like it because I think it shows how much of a freak you are when you have the ability to move your body in different ways to make a play. I think Rome Odunze has very good hands. He, like you said, he's very good at contested catching, one of the highest contested catch rates in college football. I think his run blocking, some people say that he could give more effort. I thought when I was watching some clips, I thought he was a solid run blocker, and I thought he gave pretty solid effort. And I like that because, I mean, who doesn't want a receiver that gets dirty? So I like that about him. And I know you mentioned Jalen Polk did that, so maybe he got a little bit undershadowed because of that, or overshadowed. But I liked his run blocking when I was watching. And similar to Malik Neighbors' routes, I think he needs to get better at the top of his routes. He takes a little too many steps to get out of his breaks, and sometimes it honestly just doesn't seem like he's trying too hard to create separation at the top of his routes, especially on stop routes like comebacks, I guess, or curls, hitches. I think he could be more crisp at the top of it and create separation quicker than taking as many steps as he does.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I forgot to talk about run blocking for all these people, but Rome Odunze is a good run blocker. I forgot to talk. And then, his routes, I guess they're good, but did you notice that there's always a corner like really close to him, like right at his hip for most of them?
Yeah, and I think part of that is because he, at least in college, he knew that he was going to be able to out physical the corners.
That's what so many
for the
people
ball.
say. I hope that's the case. But
I think it is. I think similarly, I feel like that's something that Marv has an issue with, where they just have to, in Rome's case, I think it's more about his actual route running and snapping off his routes, like I said. In Marv's case, I think it's more about being physical when there is contact to get them off of him and then go.
Yeah.
So,
and one more thing about Rome, I was kind of mean on him. I will say one thing I like, he kind of has that dog, is he did all the combine testing, and like, I think he did one of the 3-cone drills until he got like a 6-second something. I don't know. Whereas the top 2 guys were too scared to do it. So
I do like to see that out of a receiver, especially when they're known to be the diva position. It's good to see a guy that's seemingly got a more blue collar work ethic to him.
Let's go.
So my fourth, like I said, I flip your 3 and 4. So I have A.D. Mitchell. We already watched the Bama highlights, so we don't really need to watch this again. But I mean, he's a freak athlete in my opinion. You saw his RAS score was off the charts. Again, his catch radius is insane, and I could have put body control again for this guy. And I mean, his ability to go up there and make a play is really something quarterbacks will want to have on their team, and that should give him a lot of opportunities, which is part of the reason he snuck into my top 5, is because I think a quarterback's going to want to try to get him the ball. And then he's good after the catch. I mean, he's not going to get you crazy gains, but he will always be going forward from what I saw. So I like his yak, and those are his strengths. Where I see areas for improvement with him is he can come back to the ball a little bit, and I think this goes to your point of him being more of a body catcher. I think he tends to wait on the ball, and then that gives the defenders a little more time to get to him, and then he feels like he has to cradle it so that he can brace for the hit. I think if he gets back to the ball a little bit more, then he can get his hands out and he doesn't have to brace for impact as much. That's a little bit of what I saw when I was watching him. And then with him, consistency, he was a little up and down throughout the year, and I think a lot of people have considered that when looking at him. But obviously, when you got an athlete like him, you kind of wave the consistency a little bit to the side because you hope that you can coach it into him. And then lastly, obviously, this isn't something that you can really control in some cases. As long as he stays healthy, I think he can really do some damage in the NFL. He might be a guy that takes a year or two to really get to where he can be. I don't think he's going to be at the top right away, but in a few years, I can see him making a big impact, either on a very good wide receiver core as a number 2 or as a number 1 eventually down the road.
Yeah, and again, now that Rashee Rice probably isn't going to play next year, I do not want to see A.D. Mitchell fall to the Chiefs. Or I don't want to see the Chiefs take a guy like A.D. Mitchell. That's just going to be disastrous. Low-key Cowboys could take him. Be a nice wide receiver.
I would love that, but we have some other issues that we got to resolve.
Oh.
All
right.
And my last guy, you can cue the footage. The very first video is going to be his classic play from the playing against the backups of Florida State. But my guy, Ladd McConkey, white guy. Not that has any impact on where I have him in my draft board, but I mean, I think maybe he's getting a little underrated because of it. No, I'm kidding, but I like Ladd McConkey. I think he was a little underrated in terms of I don't think people realize how good his production was at Georgia just because of the seasons they've had. And I mean, he's had Brock Bowers right there with him. So obviously all the attention's gone to Brock, but Ladd McConkey's a very good football player. And obviously at the combine, he tested out pretty well and he was faster than people gave him credit for. My number one thing for him is he's good after the catch. I don't think people realize he makes plays, and you saw it on that Florida State footage that he can make people miss. He can get upfield and he does it really well. I think he's very reliable. I mean, you saw it with Stetson Bennett. You saw it with Carson Beck, that both of them knew that Ladd was out there and that he'd be open typically. And a lot of that has to do with his route running. He is very crisp in his route running. Honestly, I think he's one of the better route runners, maybe the best route runner in this draft class, in my opinion. I really enjoyed watching him. I think he sinks his hips really well in his routes. And I mean, you cut off the video, but at some point there's one highlight. I believe it was against South Carolina. If you scroll a little forward, little more. Yeah, this one. Go back. Look at this. Look at the sink. Look at the sink. You sink the hips like that. That's how you make people foolish. That's how you make corners look foolish. And Ladd, he can do that. I mean, he was more, and this is the yards after catch, just upfield, sink the hips again. My goodness, it's getting me excited. Maybe I'll move him up in my draft board. But I think he's going to go a little lower, so he's going to have the benefit of being on a better team, I'd assume. And I think he's going to end up being a quarterback's somewhat of a safety blanket that has that upside. I wouldn't say he's a Hunter Renfrow where he's only going to be like that safety blanket receiver. I think he's got more ability to have more explosive plays than that. But I'm high on him. As long as he stays healthy. He was injured for a lot of the season, which I know he played through it, which may have hurt his production a little bit. And then he can get a little stronger, especially in the upper body, so that when he's in press coverage or when someone's pressing him, he can fend that off a little bit better. Obviously in the NFL, that's going to be quite important. But overall, I'm pretty high on Ladd McConkey, and I think if I'd seen a little more body of work from him, he would have jumped even higher on my draft board. And the fact that he's with Georgia, obviously he's got an insane team, so not to knock against him, but it's tough to put someone that's got Brock Bowers and that offensive line and running system, Kirby Smart, tough to put them just so high because of what he's got around him. But I like Ladd McConkey, and that rounds out my list. I don't have any honorable mentions. it would be pretty much similar to you. But I'm done with the receivers. I'm excited for all of them, to be honest.
I know. I'm excited just to see where they like. Second round of this year's draft is going to be more fun than usual because you can make the argument the receivers in the second round might perform better than the receivers in the first round, just because because the depth is so crazy with all the COVID year and the receiver position being so popular. There's just so many to be taken.
Absolutely. And I would like to say that I do have one honorable mention that was not mentioned. Keon Coleman.
yeah.
I think he's gonna turn out fine. I know there's a lot of questions around him. If I would have liked to see him spend one more year in college, and I think that would have helped him in terms of his draft positioning. Obviously, he wanted to go out. He's young, but he's a freak in terms of just his size and
I like his demeanor
ability.
too.
Yeah, I think he's got a high ceiling. He's just gonna have to get polished out. So I'm not necessarily sleeping on him. Just based off his body of work, I couldn't put him into my top
I would like
5.
to say I did like Lad McConkey, but then I was like, he's not going to go in and be the number one anywhere. He's probably not going to play on the outside. I think he'll produce a lot in the slot, but if we're just going off the way I rank my guys, I couldn't put him in my top 5 or even honorable mentions. Just because
Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua,
yeah,
McConkey,
those
Jerry
are all.
Jones.
Yeah, I know those are all. Yeah, but that's just
they produced.
I know, but I don't know. I don't really care.
You don't care about production. You don't care about Cooper Kupp winning the Triple Crown. Puka Nacua.
I think that's the thing with Lad McConkey is people. It's like psychologically people grasp onto Cooper Kupp so much that they want him to be Cooper Kupp more than he can be. That's
I'm not even saying Cooper Kupp. I'm saying I am saying Cooper Kupp, but like Puka Nacua as well. I think he has a little bit of that in his game too.
Puka Nacua was an 80% outside receiver this year, even with Kupp out some of the games. But I mean, yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I didn't put him on mine, but yeah, if he turns out, it's gonna hurt my credibility a lot. But
it will, and he will turn out.
Oh well, yeah. All right. I guess there's nothing much left to say here. These are our rankings.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. Sorry it went a little bit long, but we appreciate you watching. Leave us some comments. Let us know what you think.
Mook, I hope this was enough style for you. I guess I was way too normal last podcast, so this one's for one of our viewers, Mook. Fuck you.
Drop a comment, drop a like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
We're here for a reason. Don't get that twisted. Okay, we're here for a reason.